We are really delighted to have Christopher Phillips here with us to talk to you about accessibility. It's really all about making sure everyone has access to the material, the content, the information that you're providing. Christopher Phillips is the Digital Accessibility Officer for Utah State inside the newly created Digital Accessibility Services Department. He loves working with people and helping them create more inclusive and accessible digital experiences for everyone. Our team likes to call him the accessibility guru, and he is our go-to when it comes to making sure our website templates and designs follow the appropriate accessibility standards. I know you will be richly blessed by having him as your presenter today, and we're going to go ahead and turn the time over to Christopher.
Mic test. We good? Thank you. Super excited to be here today. I love this conference. This is such a great group. All of you just become willing and excited to learn and to figure out how we can do a little bit better on our websites one way or another. And we get to interact with so many of you throughout the year, and it's wonderful to be able to put some faces to some of those names. Now we're going to be talking about accessibility. For people with disabilities, users with disabilities, but a lot of what we'll talk about today really applies in just making your web content, your web experiences more usable for everybody. Love the comments this morning from Julie, from Jen and Kat. A lot of the things that were talked about already kind of dovetail right into some of this stuff. Jen and Kat mentioned some specific accessibility things, but so much of this is just best practice. If you're doing things right, if you're doing using headings correctly, or etc., you're going to be making your content more accessible and more usable for everybody. The most important thing I'd love to kind of get in your heads today is just how excited and willing we are to help you with any questions you might have. At all. And again, last year, I was just a guy with a kind of a funny accessibility title on another team. We've kind of, the university has really stepped up in supporting and creating a digital accessibility services team now. I want to make sure to call out, we have a number of student workers, but then Megan Spackman as well. Megan, raise your hand. Who is our caption program coordinator, was hired a few months ago. We'll talk a lot about some of the work that she's been doing, and many of you have heard from her already, but she's a great resource. But we really just love to help and to talk about this stuff. And so anytime you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out. We'll be sure to share our contact information here at the end. We'll jump on Zoom. We'll come to your office, a phone call, anything at all. We are just anxious and happy to talk to you. Now, I'm excited this year because sometimes I come here and I have to do a little bit of making you maybe feel a little bit guilty. Not too much, but maybe some of you might feel a little bit ashamed. This year, a little bit different. We're going to celebrate a little bit, and just some congratulations to so many of you in the audience who have really done some incredible work around video captions in particular. Now, captions, as we all know, if you go to YouTube, you can click on this little CC button right here, and they'll show up right there on the screen. Captions make videos accessible to users who are hard of hearing, users who are deaf. But captions are also helpful to a number of people in a number of scenarios. In fact, just real quick, this is fun just so you can all see. How many of you at least sometimes turn on captions when watching videos, Netflix? Yeah, most of the hands in the audience go up. And that's just the way it is. There's some research, even a younger generation even more so. And I don't know for sure why. Maybe they have multiple screens going on or whatnot, but there's just a lot of reasons and value for turning on captions. In fact, let's just get a couple of shout out. Besides, needing them for if you're maybe deaf or hard of hearing, but when else might captions be helpful? If you just shout it out, I'll repeat it in the mic here. Sorry, what was that? Kids. You have noisy kids in the background, right? You're going to always have captions on. Levi. Yeah, some of you might be watching a TV show right now with captions on. I would never know, right? Good. But a lot of times you can't turn on the audio, and it's helpful. Please. Comprehension, good. A lot of research showing for educational videos, but if you're watching the captions while you're listening to the video, it just gets that content deeper down into your noggin. That's a big one. Here, and then I think there was another hand. Please. Yeah. Good. Difficult to understand. Yeah, that's a big one. And even a lot more, there's even we saw an article recently, a lot of mainstream movies just they're purposely making this sound more difficult to hear for authenticity. I don't know exactly what the reasons are, but you'll notice that in movie theaters, it's just maybe, what did that person say? And captions can be super helpful. There was another hand over here. Good. Just a piggyback comment that was watching a video on YouTube. The speaker had a thick accent and told the audience, please turn on the captions to help you understand what I'm saying. That's fantastic. Along those lines, if you're an English language learner, right, captions are huge. It's a lot easier to read something. We could go on and on. There's just a lot of value. It just doesn't make sense to not do captions anymore. Maybe at one point, especially, and we'll talk about how we do some of this. But to make sure, I think most people who are involved with captions know about this standard now. This kind of was implemented in July of last year, and basically states a couple of key things I'll highlight here. All public USU videos published after July of last year just have to have captions, professional quality captions on them. And then also, all videos on websites must be captioned. So there is kind of a category of legacy videos, we call them, that were published before July that may not need captions. It's still great and best practice if you can. But if those legacy videos are on a website, then they would need to be captioned. Now, I just want to show a little bit some of the progress we've made. Here's our first chart real quick. So first one is from November of 2020. We had about 22% of our videos were captioned at the time, about 1,400 out of 6,500. Jump to today, we're now at 84%, 9,047 out of 10,700 videos are completely professionally captioned. This is you guys that did this work, so incredible job on that. Now, all but just a few of those are legacy videos that are uncaptioned, right? This is incredible. Now, this is, in fact, I'll bring this up. This is across 77 different active YouTube channels at Utah State. That's a lot of channels. Just as a side note, I guess, there are 102 that we have kind of inactive, no videos in over a year, or abandoned channels that we'd love to work with you on shutting some of those down or getting rid of them. But that's a lot. But now a user, someone who's deaf or hard of hearing, can go to any video, not any video, but almost any video on any of those channels, click play, and know that they can experience that video just the same as anyone else. That's a really big deal. On our college channels, 100% of videos have been captioned, legacy and kind of new ones. That's exciting. And then as we look at the standards specifically, since July, just as we pulled reports just recently, 97.3% of those videos have been captioned. We've been at 100%. Each month as you add new videos, we're kind of just trying to keep up a little bit. If you have one of the, I think, 32 videos in that red zone, there's an email from Megan in your inbox to follow up on that. So, and we're happy to work with you on that. Kind of how you've all done this, want to mention most of you are using our captioning vendor 3Play. Captions used to be fairly expensive and time-consuming to do. It's just not the case anymore. Some of the machine generated text kind of tools help with this, but they've lowered our costs so that you can now caption a video for about $1.10 a minute on kind of the 10-day turnaround, which is that we recommend. And it's super easy. You just hook up your YouTube channel with our captioning vendor, go in and select the videos you want to do, click submit. They caption the videos and add the captions right back to YouTube for you. That's it. It's really just go in under 30 seconds, you can submit those videos to be captioned. And most people are using 3Play. Some of you, for any number of reasons, budget or resources, are choosing to do these on your own. And that's okay as well. YouTube has a caption editor where you go in and you have to kind of edit the captions, because YouTube does do an automatic caption for your videos. And I think, again, that's not good enough. It's a starting point, but there's often you need to go in and correct typos, misspellings, a lot of things like that. And if you are doing them on your own, we do have some kind of caption quality standards. There's also a course you can go through that Megan's built, where you can go through and learn how to do this really well. And then we'll kind of help audit those and make sure they're okay. But by the time you go through and do a lot of this, it's often cheaper to just have them done professionally if you're able to. I know that's not always an option, but we're also more than happy to be kind of a resource in helping to even identify budget if needed, or that type of a thing. But really, I mean, we haven't had any channel that hasn't done, where there's a few every month that we're catching up on, but I think at the beginning of February we were at 100% of all new videos, and so all of you are just doing a really good job kind of across the board. Question, please. Hold on, if you can wait for the mic there, thank you. Great question. So if you don't have a 3-play count already, I should have had the email. It's captions@usu.edu. Email us, and Megan might even do it right here in the meeting. She's super quick to respond. But just let us know, and we can help you get that set up. Any other questions real quick before we go to some next slides? I want to talk a little bit about kind of how we're doing our compliance or encouragement efforts, depending on kind of where we're at in the cycle. It starts to feel like one or the other. Just because, and if you're not super involved in captions, that's okay. And there's way more, you don't need to obviously read the content here. I just wanted to get a sense of kind of the scope of what we're doing and how we're tracking this. Because we do have that list of those 77 channels. We're always finding new ones, maybe getting rid of some old ones. A number of you have consolidated YouTube channels, which has been, I think, a really helpful effort. One department happened to have 3 different YouTube channels that were all kind of the same thing, right? And so the more you can do to combine channels, like into your college channel, for example, that often ends up being helpful for both your smaller channel and the department channel. That's something to consider. So we have this list of this is just some of those channels with a lot of information about all those channels, and we're happy to share that with you. And kind of what we've built, and I'll just give a quick shout out to a student developer, Emma Lynn, who has done some incredible work that now we used to kind of have to go through one by one and audit all these channels. We now have some tools where we just click a button and it goes out and updates all this information for us to tell us, have there been any new videos published in this channel? And so we have that information. It makes it a lot easier for us, and then to be able to share that information with you. And then when there are new videos added, basically we run a report that gives you a list of all the videos in that channel. Now this is helpful for accessibility and for captioning, but could also be really helpful for whatever else you want to do, right? Some departments have used this to clean up a lot of maybe older videos that just weren't being used anymore, or even had old incorrect information. But it'll have information like the number of views, whether it's captioned or not, et cetera, and then you can use that to caption all of your videos. Question. Let's get the mic right here. No, you're good.
So yeah, I was just wondering, videos that are just music and just usually they use graphics or whatever. Mm-hmm. Do you still need to put in a caption, like a note that says music playing,
great
or
question.
anything like that?
Yeah, so if your video just has music, a caption file is still needed on there. And there's some specific directions on that caption quality page, but it could be as simple as just brackets with music. And really that's going to be important, because if someone is deaf, they're not going to know if they're missing speech or not, and so letting someone know that the music is there. And it might even be that you're going to say instrumental music, if that mood of the music is important. And we even have some sample music files you can just download from our site, to just download and upload real quick. It's a really quick process if that's all it is, but we would encourage you to still add a music file. We have that on for like the first 15 seconds of the video. That just lets the user know this is captioned, but there's no audio, there's no speech here you need to hear. That's a great question. Thank you. Please, another question? Hold on just 1 second for the mic.
Thank you. You mentioned that there are some advantages to consolidation. What are those advantages?
Yeah, great question. So, sometimes it's just that there's multiple channels having the exact same purpose, and so just for a user to know, I won't mention the department, but they might search for a certain department and find 3 different YouTube channels and be unsure of which one is there. But the big one that comes, and this is actually in the USU brand kind of YouTube guidelines as well, is just a lot more traffic. And so if your college site might have 2,000 subscribers, but you have a project site that has 5 subscribers, right, or 15 maybe, if you add your videos to the college YouTube site as its own playlist or channel, something in there, then all of those visitors to the YouTube channel are going to be more likely to be exposed to your kind of department or project type videos. And we do have some resources we can help just download those for you if you need to help moving them over, things like that, and making sure the captions get moved over with them. There might be somebody from the brand team who can speak better to that, but they've told me it's helpful for us just to simplify, but there's also, I think, advantages just for SEO and getting it in front of more people. Another question right here.
This is about Canvas. We have a lot of professors who put clips on their Canvas pages. Do those also need to be captioned?
That's a great question. We have a kind of a separate process. Videos within Canvas that are behind a login, or really any video behind a login, is somewhat exempt from the requirement to caption everything up front, as long as you have a way to kind of say, is there someone who's going to need captions on this video, and we'll make sure to get it done for you. So for videos and captions, we have a great disability resource center. They identify those students who need captions on videos. We get that list, and then they reach out to those professors to make sure those videos are captioned ahead of time. That said, there is just a lot of value, and we do have, for Canvas videos, there is some budget that's available to help caption those. So if it's a video that, especially if a teacher's using it year over year, or that there's a lot of students who are going to benefit, you can just email captions@USU again, and we'll help you get those videos captioned. We caption tens of thousands of videos. I don't know numbers-wise, but we do a lot of instructional videos each year. Thank you. Oh, please.
So with the advancement of AI and helping caption stuff, do you have a timeline where YouTube can take that over and we don't have to pay $1.50?
That's a great question. So just the idea of when is machine captions, when are they going to be good enough? I wish I knew. A year ago I might have said it's still 5 to 10 years out. I think it's been an exciting year in that space, and maybe we're looking more to 2 to 3 years out. We're not there yet, for sure. There are different tools that do a better job than others. Megan's done. Adobe Premiere actually has a really good one that we recommend people use instead of YouTube. And there's some instructions on how to do that on our website. At some point it'll be as good as humans and maybe even better, right? We'll surpass that. I don't know when that's coming. So far it's helped us get from $4 or $5 a minute down to $1 a minute, just because the machine's doing more, humans are doing less. But we still just need a human to look over those at this point.
Do you have a standard?
We do, and so if you go to our website, there is just, and I'll share a link here in a second, but there's some caption quality standards that we look at that kind of goes through exactly what you need to do to make your captions, from the machine captions to the professional. YouTube doesn't even add any punctuation, generally. There'll be a lot of names, other specific things that are going to be misspelled, depending on the quality of the speaker. Sometimes it does a pretty good job. But you need to look through that and make sure. The biggest lesson I kind of had, I guess, in that was a few years ago, I happened to work for a large religious organization. We were having this conversation, and one of the religious leaders had an auto caption that was swearing, and that kind of helped flip that conversation and made it a lot easier to kind of say, yeah, we really do need to have professional captions. But that's often work that if there's a student employee, maybe, again, we're happy to work with them to go through that training. Or there may be just somebody that, an admin assistant who has some extra time or some downtime. It's the kind of work that, it's not, you have to have some training and some understanding of it, but it's something that almost anyone can do to help out in reviewing those. Okay. I mentioned we share this report. And then the model kind of for compliance that we're using, right here, is what we've done is every college or division at the university now has an accessibility representative or accessibility liaison. And so that group, this is for the executive vice president's office, gets a list of all the YouTube channels. It's kind of an up-to-date list. They can go in at any time and kind of see who are my channels, who are those channel owners, what do we need to do to kind of make that progress, or who needs to be talked to. And we're kind of working a lot more with those accessibility representatives. And again, keep that in mind as we talk about websites in just a minute. But that's how we're kind of rolling with that. And then again, there is just an abundance of resources on our website here. And we're happy to do just individual one-on-one kind of training. But anything from how to create a transcript, to convince somebody what the benefits are, the step-by-step for submitting a video, et cetera, et cetera. There's just a lot of good information there that we would invite anyone to jump on and take a look at that and check it out. So that's information on captions. Any maybe last caption questions before I move on to kind of some web accessibility stuff?
I'm used to back in the old days making captions before some of these other programs did it, where we actually like had to go into a separate program, manually type in things. As far as for social media and other platforms, when you pay for some of these services, do they allow you to suggest formatting or making the text look a little prettier than some of this basic generic?
Yeah, that's a great question. Social media captions are complicated right now. We've done some work on that, and there's some guidelines on our website, but generally they'll just deliver a flat file. You would have to apply any formatting yourself. And we don't have the types of integrations yet with most of those social media providers, so it's a little bit more of a manual process. And while the standard does kind of require captions on social media, we're just not doing as much compliance there, and so you have a little bit of space to kind of try things out and figure things out. We would certainly encourage it. We would love to work with you on that, but it's also not something we're going to be checking quite as much. But you will see on a lot of social media that people just for impact, I think captions make a big difference on putting them up there. Levi.
So this one maybe gets in the weeds a little bit, but let's say, for example, you have a faculty and maybe they are hosting their own personal research lab site on WordPress or something, and they have their own personal YouTube channel. Where does the university draw the line, and how do we need to approach those so that way they're captioned? That sort of stuff. Am I making any sense?
Really good question, and it's one that I don't have a great answer to just yet. We're working with General Counsel on this. It applies for both YouTube channels and for websites, or personal faculty websites. In fact, we've got a set of like 4 YouTube channels just over the last couple weeks. One that's from a university professor that just kind of declares it's a USU site on there, but it's from a professor. One that, there's 2 or 3 different kind of scenarios and levels of gray there that we're working through and trying to figure that out, what the standard needs to be there. If they're claiming that it's a USU channel, then I think there's certainly some liability we would be concerned about there. There's some fuzzy cases though, and we hope to have more direction on that soon. I couldn't tell you a date, to be honest.
Can I follow up with that too? Kind of along those lines too, like abandoned YouTube channels. Do we have any kind of long-term plans for because some of them are like they're faculty that have retired or they've left or something, and it's been gone for a while, but no one knows how to get in there and take it down. How do we approach those?
That's probably more of a UMAC question, and we've kind of reached out to them and are having some conversations around that. It certainly, there's one particular channel that's been abandoned that has a couple million views, right, that's out there and still getting views, but it doesn't maybe represent the current thinking of the university. I think that, so one thing, there are some, if you look at the UMAC YouTube guidelines, they do recommend that you always have at least 2 owners on a site, and that one of those owners, or at least contributors, be captions at USU, and then they have an owner as well, to avoid those types of situations. We did have a department last year who had a student that kind of just did the account on their own and deleted, 100 or so videos that were just gone, poof. Work with UMAC especially on that. They have some really good guidelines on making sure that for past older channels, we're sometimes limited in how much we can get rid of those. But try to do things the right way going forward, I guess, to have the right people on there.
I've been thinking about this for the last 5 minutes since we talked about videos with background music. We are considering captions for deaf or hard of hearing people, but what about visually impaired people? If we have a video with just background music but texts, or visuals to describe.
Yeah.
Do we just encourage people to not create those kind of videos,
No,
or is
that-
there another solution?
Good question. For someone who's low vision or blind, there is a different service called audio description, and we also have access to that. We don't use it a lot. We kind of would generally encourage that if you're creating a video that does have text that's important, to just read it out loud. But if that's not what you're going for with the video or you need it, there's a service you can get, again, where you submit a video, and there's just a separate audio track that's added to it that can kind of speak the important information that's not able to be heard. So that's there and it's available as well. Yes, so YouTube's a little bit tricky. Sometimes it doesn't let you do a separate track yet. That's supposed to be coming. They've kind of promised it this year. So you may need to do a separate video that's an audio described video with YouTube currently. We do have another Kaltura system that you can do 2 audio tracks on that we could work with you on as well. So there's solutions. Reach out to us on that. Okay, thank you. I'm going to stick around as long as needed for some other questions, but I want to jump into this kind of what's next. So, and this page might feel a little bit overwhelming. We're going to walk you through this in just a minute. But now that we've kind of got a pretty good handle on captions, there's still some work to do, and that's going to be an ongoing effort. But our next big effort is going to be establishing and working with all of you on a web accessibility standard. I want to start with some good news on this first. We have some enterprise kind of tools that check this. Just a couple of charts. This is exciting as I looked at this just the other day. If we look at the past 6 months, this is total errors across all of our sites. We went from almost 400,000, we're down to like 280,000. And that's that's with us doing some outreach, but a lot of you are just doing some good work on your own. We'll highlight one group doing some of that in just a minute. And so this is, total errors. This next one is kind of a more valuable metric that we'll hope you'll all learn a little bit, but it's the number of errors per page. How many accessibility errors per page does my site have? And again, you can see that we've gone from just over 7.8 to just under 6 errors per page over 6 months. That's some remarkable, good, measurable progress. Now, one note, I guess I will say, is that these are some accessibility errors on pages can be automatically detected by a machine, but not everything. So just because you get to 0 doesn't mean you're perfectly accessible, but it's still a good indicator and lets you know some at least clear things that you can do. Now, we're big believers in the kind of power of yet at our house, and there are some problems that we've got, things we've got to work on, right? So across all of our sites, we still have about 6 errors per page. Over 276,000 total errors. Now I'm going to go into this tool a little bit in a minute and show you how you can use this a little bit and how available to you. But want to talk just a little bit about some information about our USU sites. So as far as I know, there isn't any comprehensive list of all USU websites. Julie's team has a list of all the Omni sites. Ben has a list of a bunch of the sites that he manages. Then there's a bunch of other sites that are just out there, right? And so I don't know that our list is complete yet, but we have identified just over 500 sites at Utah State. 360 of those are using Omni. I think that's something to be applauded. We've got about 142 that are using other platforms. That would include a lot of the Cold Fusion sites that are managed from UMAC, but then also a lot of just WordPress sites, Weebly sites, et cetera, et cetera. One, I think, thing to note, though, is just this number right here on errors per page. A lot of work has been put into Ben and the UMAC team and then Julie and the IT web team to make sure the basic Omni CMS templates are accessible, and you can really just see that here. Across those sites, it's just 1.36 errors per page. Non-Omni sites, almost 13 errors per page. So those are a lot of our more problematic sites where we're really going to need to put in some efforts. Now, one thing, and again, we're not in the business of dictating what platforms people can use or not. I don't know that anybody is at the university, quite frankly. But I think as we work towards this accessibility standard, if you have a professor or a department who has really held out on saying, you know what, I just don't want to use Omni, I've got this Dreamweaver 3.0 I've been using for 20 years and it works great. This is a great argument to kind of say, that's fine, but you're going to need to make sure this is accessible, and you can get that for free if you switch over to Omni. We've already seen some people doing that, and it's just been really helpful and effective with all of the good branding and just best practices that are built into the Omni templates. So that's something we would certainly encourage. And again, we're happy to share some of these lists with you. Just wanted to talk to real quick what we consider to be a website. And this is an evolving definition for us that we'll work with you on a little bit. But we have a couple of examples here. First of all, if it's a unique kind of outside of usu.edu domain, that's a unique website, right? utahstatesman.com is going to be an example of that. Second, if it's a subdomain, we will consider it a unique site. We used to have a lot more subdomains. We've moved away from a lot of those. And then this next one is kind of more complicated. It's kind of using folders as needed. I'm going to use Levi as an example. We just worked with him, so we initially had kind of these departments set up as separate sites. But then as we talked to Levi, he said, no, I'm the only one that's managing these, so it's okay just to consolidate all of those into one site. And so we will work with you and your department or college or division representative to help us define what are sites, what is a helpful definition of a site for you, and kind of how we group those and share them out. However, if it was the opposite case where we say, you know, we've got somebody who just is over this site, we can separate out folders into their own site as well. So we'll work with you on what that looks like. Okay, I think I've got... Okay, so as we talk about an emerging web accessibility standard, where we're at right now is we're just verifying that list of 500 sites. We've sent out about half of those to the division accessibility representative. We'll hope to get the other half out this week. Then we'll be working with those groups to kind of just say, help us identify, do we have the right person for this site? Is this a site that should be a site? One case that came up with the IDRPP, and I still have a hard time with, thank you. Institute for Disability Research, Policy, and Practice. Fabulous. Somebody help me in the audience. I appreciate it. Is they had a couple of sites that were branded as USU, but were actually managed by institutions outside of USU, right? So that's another edge case, identifying things like that. But in general, if it has a USU logo on the site, we're kind of considering it a USU site. But that's what we're kind of doing. Then what we're going to do is add all of those site owners or people that are kind of responsible for that site to a tool called PopeTech. I'm going to show you that in just a minute. And from there, we'd encourage all of you to get started. When we started having caption conversations 2 or 3 years ago, a lot of progress was made from many of you before that standard was in place. And we hope that at least some of you will start working on web accessibility kind of before those requirements are in place. We don't have a timeline on that, but I really am hopeful that by the end of the year or at least by the beginning of next year, we'll have kind of those web accessibility standards or requirements in place. So I would encourage you now to start getting familiar with that, start doing some of the work you need to update some of those sites. And then we'll keep you in the loop as those standards are made more public. Now, for the next steps on how you can get started, what you can do. The first thing, if you've got your laptops out, go ahead and jump to wave.webaim.org. I'm going to jump out of my presentation. We're going to go there together and just take a look at that. I didn't want to embarrass anyone here, but as we look at accessibility of sites, so I had no problem, though. You can go to this site, again, wave.webaim.org, and plug in your URL. The other thing that you can do, in fact, if I go back just a page, there are browser extensions. I'd encourage you just to add this to your browser. It makes it super easy. Oops, so I can just go on any website I'm on. I can just click the little browser extension. It'll do the same thing, which is super helpful. So this is not super atypical. There's a lot on here, though, and I just want to walk through so it feels a little bit less overwhelming, maybe. Now, this is a great tool for some of the other content stuff that we talked about earlier. There's I think it's right, structure, for example, right here. This is a great tab you can click on to see how you're using headings in a site. And are they being used in a way that's appropriate? H2, like right here, you can see they jump from an H2 to an H4. As Jen and Kat reminded us, that's not a best practice, so we'd recommend changing that, for example. With all these icons in here, again, it can feel a little bit overwhelming. So another thing you can do is just turn the styles off, and that just simplifies it a little bit. And this gives you a view of your site that's going to be a little bit more like what someone who is blind might see as well, and how they might experience your website. Now, we've got these errors here and some alerts. I can come here and click on details, and I can say, okay, look, I've got 2 instances where I'm missing alternative text. Alternative text just being, and I'm not going to go into a lot of details or training about specific things, but you would just add a quick description to the image. I can click on this real quick and see, oh, it's right there. I can see that that doesn't have alt text on it. I can click real quick here. And I can even see, if I want to look in the code and see where exactly is that at. Image, sure enough, there's no alt text there. I can go into my tool, fix that, and update it here. There's some here where it has suspicious alternative text. So they do have, let me go to a different one, generic graphic, right? So it's fine. It has alt text. That's not super helpful alt text. And it'll kind of call that out. That's not going to be very helpful to someone. You can kind of just go down here and see, here's that skipped heading level that we talked about, very small text, et cetera, et cetera. There is a contrast tool on here as well that give you some ways to help look at contrast, which is going to be a big issue. And you can kind of desaturate your page here to give you a better sense of where some of that might be. This site doesn't actually have any contrast errors, so I can't give you a specific example. But if you did, it would show you kind of some samples here, and you can kind of play with that to make sure that the gray you're using is different enough from the black background, et cetera, whatever it might be. But this is a tool called Wave that you can use one page at a time. And many of you have used this. This is actually a tool that was developed right here at Utah State University that's used by people all over the world. It's one of the tools to use from the Institute for Disability Research Policy and Practice. I got it. It's from the WebAIM team that many of you are familiar with. Now, the cool thing is, though, this is one page at a time, but many of you have lots of pages on lots of sites. And so WebAIM has worked with a group, Pope Tech. If you've been here at Utah State in the IT space, you've maybe worked with one of the Pope brothers. They've been around campus, but they've developed a really cool tool built on Wave that lets you look at all of your errors across all of your sites and pages. And this is the one that we're getting kind of validation of which sites should be in here, who should be those owners, and then we'll add you to this tool. Many of you are already in it. If you're anxious to jump in, shoot an email to accessibility@USU, and we can get you added today even. But I want to just go over a little bit how this tool works. And there are lots of training resources available as well. Whoops, let me just go. So the first thing is that we're going to put, it has the ability to group sites, so that if you're over 3 or 4 sites, we can put those into a filtered view so you can see all of those together. We're going to take a look at Extension, who gave me the okay today. And I mostly wanted to highlight, they've just done some incredible work. Look at this over the past 6 months. Colton, I think, has done a lot of this work. Yeah, that's worth an applause, I think. Now, we can highlight a number of you that have done incredible work like this and are using Pope Tech to do this, but this is exciting. But what you see when you come in here, again, it can be a little bit overwhelming. But if you're over multiple sites, you can come here and say, ooh, what are my most problematic sites that I maybe need to look at or work on? I can sort those by errors or by errors per page if I need to. Again, they've got a number of sites with 0 errors. That's awesome. Or I could say here, pest advisories, that one has about 20. That's a more problematic one. We could look at that. Now, often these errors can be fixed in like a template. So you might fix, we had one issue where Danielle helped us with, there was one site that had just a template issue, I think knocked out like 20,000 errors kind of in one blow, which was super fun. But I can click on an individual site if I want to kind of see what are the errors for this site. In fact, there's a better way to do this. Let me come back here. It shows the errors here, but if I click on the total errors here, it'll, for example, show me a very low contrast or linked image missing alternative text. That's one that's pretty easy to fix. I could click on that and say, okay, which sites have this problem? Let's look at that pest advisory site. And then it'll say, okay, here's the exact pages that have that problem. And I can then click on that page, click on and see where in the code is this a problem, or you can jump right out to the Wave tool. And again, if this is feeling overwhelming for any reason, don't hesitate to reach out. We'll go through this with you one page at a time, as often and as long as you need to kind of get there to where you feel comfortable. The other thing, there are errors, but there are also alerts. Alerts are things that it doesn't know. They may be errors, they may not be errors. Here's some things you need to look at. But there's some helpful stuff here. Like maybe you want to identify all the links to PDF documents across your sites. You can get a list of all of those, for example. Or all the YouTube videos to make sure they're captioned. Or there is like skipped headings that we talked about earlier from a content perspective. You can find out all of those across all of your sites. So there's just a lot of information here that can be used in a lot of different ways. And it's available in Pope Tech, but for all of these, you can also come in here, and for a website or for a group, I can come in here and say, give me a CSV of, let me in fact just say, I want to get just information on all the video and audio on my site. I can set that, click create, and it'll download a CSV that'll give you all the pages that have links to YouTube or other MP4 files, for example. There's just a lot of information here that I think will be helpful beyond just accessibility, if that makes sense. But that's the Pope Tech dashboard. We have some training available, but we'll be building out a lot of that over the next little bit. And many of you will be seeing an invite to join Pope Tech in the coming month or two. So watch out for that, and then let us know as you get in and have questions. Okay, that is Wave and Pope Tech. Just as we get close to wrapping up here, just want to remind you that accessibility is a journey more than a destination. If you pull up Pope Tech and it might say 10,000 errors, and you're gonna it's okay, right? Take a deep breath. Really, our goal for now, there's not a standard in place yet, so you can kind of work at your own pace. We encourage you to be aware of this, to start working on it, but you've got some time to figure some things out. And you may say, okay, for now, we're just going to stop creating more errors. So in our new pages we're going to build, we're going to try to make sure those ones are accessible, and then we can start working on our back pages as we have time, or reach out for some help on doing that type of a thing. Just making sure this is something you're keeping in mind, something you're working towards. But then over time, we will have some standards in place that will help you with resources to help you get there. And speaking of that, just want to, again, there's lots of help and resources on our website, but would also just encourage you to reach out anytime. We've had a number of conversations with many of you. Those of you we haven't had a chance to meet or visit with, we would love to talk to you about your site. And just look at how it can be more accessible, how it can be more inclusive, and in doing so, really making your site more usable for everyone. It's going to be more mobile friendly, more search engine friendly. Accessibility best practices are in general just web best practices, and help make your web content more accessible for everyone. Okay, that's it. We've got a couple of minutes for if there's any more questions from the audience. If there are no questions, I might ask Colton a question. As you've dived into, any thoughts you might share as you've dived into web accessibility and making some of those improvements? Is that okay to put you on the spot? Sorry.
We've just, can you hear? Yeah, okay. We've just focused mostly on those low-hanging fruit with the template issues. I mean, we have some sites out on WordPress that are blogs and different things that we're trying to wrangle in. But just taking care of those things that you can do, one adjustment in the template and that knocks out hundreds at a time. That's kind of been our initial approach. Yep. And then we've got a lot of sites, so just going through the main ones one at a time and finding the big things like alt text and contrast and just one page at a time. But that's been our big thing, just putting time and effort into it. So
awesome, thank you so much. And that's something we're happy to help you identify, kind of those template, big picture issues that we can work on. A lot of those, like I say, can be addressed pretty quickly. Question?
Do you have any advice specific to PDFs that are living on the web?
Absolutely,
we have
don't
a lot
use
of
them.
forms.
Sorry.
I know we're trying.
So
we're
there's
trying
some
to get
exceptions
there.
to that, right? I could talk for an hour about PDF files and the evil of PDF files, but there's cases where sometimes where they're needed. Now there's a lot of times where they're not, though. We worked with the College of Science. They had 100 or so PDF files of some kind of poster board sessions, and we're able to convert all of those to web pages, and now they're just there as mobile-friendly, accessible, search engine-friendly websites. And that's a service that we can provide and offer to you. So if you have PDF files that are just content, let us know. If you do have to have a PDF file that's a form available, it's a bigger conversation. There isn't a document accessibility course we would encourage you to take we are able to offer for free, that's available on our website, or email us and we can get you added to that. Or reach out to us and we can sit down. PDFs they're just difficult to make accessible is the problem. But there is a built-in accessibility checker in Acrobat that you can use. We all have access to the full version of Acrobat. So there are ways to make it, and a lot of the time the work happens in like a Microsoft Word document first before you convert it to a PDF. But there are ways to make a PDF file accessible. How to do that is probably a bigger question than what we have time to answer today. But follow up and we'd be happy to share some resources with you. We're wrapping up on time. Any last questions? Over here, we've got a question. Good question. Let me just jump over there real quick. And go to usu.edu/accessibility. If you just go to resources, and again, you can see some of what we have here, but there's just document accessibility course right here. Click on that. It's a Canvas course. It's offered through WebAIM. It's usually $125 a person, so it's a great resource. You're able to get logged in and do it at your own pace. It'll go over Word, PowerPoint, PDF accessibility, as well as just some good basic accessibility principles. We'd love as many people as are able to take that course. You can do it on your own time. If you have a little bit of time over the summer, that's a great time to maybe jump in and do that. And we'll get you involved. Just shoot us an email. We'll add you to the course. Okay, I think that's time. Thank you so much. I'll be around if you have any specific questions about your sites. Really appreciate your time today.